Would you?
Yeah.
Well, you tell me you're the 3.
Oh.
Who's this?
Okay.
Alex, do you want to get it?
Yeah.
Or shall I?
The door open.
So Sarge knocked on the door.
Hello, how are you?
I'm
Alright?
good. How are you?
Awesome,
I didn't want to
come
let
on.
myself in.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's
see you.
fine.
Hi.
I was like, did we close that door or what?
It's wide open.
Oh, Jake, we've had all the.
I'll get some more.
cookies.
You introduce, I'll get some more food.
Awesome. So, first, one of the things I was thinking is I'm not too sure how you pronounce your name because it's
Sayeeda.
Sayeeda.
Yeah.
Okay, we were
Talk to
saying
the camera.
Sayeeda.
Well, yeah, do you know what? I don't even know.
You just sort of roll with it, you go with it.
I don't even know.
Oh,
So.
fair enough. So, what happened last week?
Oh, do you know what? I don't even know. I think when we were messaging, I
Yeah.
just got so excited the fact that you asked me. And then I just messed my times up. When I was halfway through my class, I looked at the clock. I was like, God, it's 7 o'clock.
Oh no.
And I was just like,
Oh,
oops.
no.
Yeah, so.
Did you think like, okay, we've got like a class at this time
Yeah.
and like what?
Schedule's just so crazy.
Schedule.
So.
It's got on schedule, yeah.
But I don't have to do that. But maybe the universe was just talking to us. It wasn't meant to be that.
Maybe we'll go with that. We'll
Yeah,
say that.
yeah.
So you still at Nuffield now? Is
I
that?
am, yeah.
Okay. How are those classes going?
They're very well, thank you. Yeah,
Good,
yeah.
good.
Really good.
Is Philippe still doing his classes then as well?
He's not, unfortunately.
Is he not?
No,
Okay, how
they,
come?
they took it off.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, which is a big shame because
Yeah.
the students were really benefiting from.
Well, I think it was a very where I went a good, it was like 4 or 5 times, and it was very for me it was relaxing. Like I didn't get kind of like a deep, anything much deeper than that relaxation.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was a really nice class. Everyone was really relaxed. It was chill.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of health as well, isn't it? I suppose.
Of course it is.
So it's really bad that I think Nuffield just went. Okay.
Get rid of that.
Yeah, it's a shame. I think the students were quite upset about it, and they did put some comments in to try.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
these things happen.
Wouldn't some of them go to your class and then move on to their, like?
They would, yeah, because mine was right
Philippe
before.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we'd be all warmed up,
Yeah.
and then we'd go straight into.
Oh, awesome.
Philippe's class.
And you join in as well, would you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
I'd be right there with them, so.
I know you'd be talking for like, it would be like, we'd always be like, right, we're heading off now, we're closing everything down, and we're like, oh, they're still
Yes,
talking again.
that had happened to me
yapping.
before as well.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's funny. So have you learned anything from Philippe at all?
Yes, of course. Yeah, he talks a lot about allowing,
Okay.
and the process of surrender,
Yeah.
really, I guess, and just to just to be in the moment and just observe. So yeah, his classes were really quite shifting for me.
Okay.
I had not got to a space like that before. It was on a very deeper level with my meditation practice.
Okay.
So I kind of entered this area which I hadn't quite ventured before.
Yeah,
So
okay.
yeah, it was quite inspiring.
Oh,
to really,
fair
yeah,
enough.
it was good. It was really good.
I thought you were going to say.
No.
Yeah, I found with Philippe's class he was very he did this thing which I thought was quite interesting, and I've sort of considered adopting it into my own sort of things, which is where he gets you to stand there, and he'll just get you to close your eyes, and you just sort of you move,
Yeah.
but it feels so silly. Do you know what I mean?
Of course it does.
Like-
You have to break through that barrier of what are people going to think?
Yeah.
Am I doing it right? Should I be doing something?
Has someone got their eyes open and looking at me while I'm doing
Exactly,
this?
yeah.
Can you
the
explain what that is? I don't
It's
think
the
I get it.
moving meditation. So he will get you to stand on the mat and this is the whole allowing process, and he'll kind of get you to just stand there, and obviously we've done some breathing techniques before you go into it,
Mhm.
and then you basically just allow. So
Okay.
whatever happens, we worked with energy quite a lot.
Right.
And yeah, he'll generally have this visualization of this golden ball or something,
Yeah.
and then that will move that slightly, and then basically you just kind of go into it and
Okay.
just allow whatever to happen.
So what does that achieve that normal meditation doesn't? Like, what's the difference between that? Like, what's the different side effects of that?
That's an interesting question. I think that really most meditations are kind of all trying to achieve the same sort of thing. They're just different.
Yeah.
They're just different
Avenues,
different
like-
methods, different tools. So I guess I can only really speak from my experience. But I know Philippe is very on letting go of the ego. I mean, and just kind of surrendering to the process.
Mm.
It's a tough question to
Okay,
answer. Really tough.
So how about this? Let's frame it a different way, because I'm a personal trainer, and I find that different methods, like you saying, get people to the same place, but different methods require different people require different methods to get them to the same place. So what type of could you imagine or envision a type of person who would perhaps benefit from more of that style of yoga, meditation, as opposed to a different?
You can't answer that question, because I think every person is different and everyone's experience is different. So unless you kind of try these things out, you'll never really know. It's just one of those things that you just need to give it a go, and if it works for you, it works. If it doesn't, move on to something else, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's almost like your philosophy kind of has to be aligned, I think, with that type of meditation.
I think that you have to have some sort of understanding, perhaps, of the complexities or the deepness of our experience of life in order to maybe go to that type of meditation practice.
Okay.
Because for someone who's never done anything like that before, it's probably going to be quite overwhelming and what is this, you know?
No, I totally agree. So it's definitely not like a beginner's thing.
Well, I mean, he did do beginners classes on the Monday, so I don't see why not. Again, it's one of those things that every person is probably at a different stage in their journey. So it's just really difficult to kind of tell where the student's at, if they're ready, if they want to be ready. But you know, generally the student and the teacher will present themselves at the right time. So
there was a lady during one of his sessions who she was very hesitant when she first started. I remember that. I don't know how long she continued it on for.
Right.
But I know that she was quite. I don't know whether she was aggressive, but she just seemed quite against it. But then after the session, she was like speaking to Philippe for quite a while, and Philippe was saying to me that apparently she hadn't had an experience like it before, and something really hit home with her. And I was quite surprised about that, because for me, although I got that it was relaxing, I didn't get much out of it. Whereas for her, she seemed to have. So it's exactly the same thing. Everyone seems to be so different.
Exactly. Everyone's life experience is different, and a lot of these practices will maybe bring up some of our experience, maybe trauma, you know, things which have been stored in our body, and this is why when we're moving energy, these things can crop up, you know. If you've had a life where you haven't really had much stuff and everything's just been kind of okay, then maybe you won't have the same experiences as someone who has had things.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you know, but then again, it might just be a process of time and working through the different layers to kind of get to a point where something like that happens. Then again, I also think that if you have an expectation of something to happen, then it probably won't.
Okay.
Because you're expecting something.
And you could be overly expecting.
Yeah, and you know, if you're in a place of expectation, then you have an idea of what you want to happen, and it's limiting, because then you don't really open yourself up to the possibility of what you don't already know.
Okay. Yeah, okay, I get you. You've kind of got barriers in front. And
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. You're less open to.
Exactly, because you have this kind of tunnel vision of you're expecting something, even if you don't know what it is. You're still kind of down a certain path, which means that all of this stuff on the outside is just forgotten about.
That's it. I know that I very much it's like if I go into a meditation class and I don't feel like I'm on what I can imagine a DMT trip would be, then I'm like, no, I haven't. But I've heard loads of stories. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, and I'm in. So whenever I got the opportunity, I am there.
So meditation is just like a warming up process.
I feel
towards Class A drugs.
Your ayahuasca retreat.
That's it. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. Those experiences sound phenomenal, but I think I'm very idealistic, and I've heard about those ideas and those experiences, and now I'm kind of going to Philippe's session, being like, right, when do we meet the aliens? And it's probably not on session 1.
Patience, right?
You don't have time.
Can I ask then? So someone coming along to say one of your classes or one of Philippe's classes, what should they be expecting?
Well, I can tell you only from what to expect from my classes, really. My classes, they are quite physically based. We practice a lot of asana, so that's the physical postures of yoga. I do work a lot with breath and the syncing the breath with the movement. My focus is the breath because I believe the breath is the key to the inner world. So yeah, we'll start off with a 5-minute short meditation just to kind of tune into the breath, and then we'll do some gentle movements just to warm the body up. Then we'll go through sun salutation sequences and various postures for various reasons. So each class is slightly different, and then we always come to Shavasana at the end and just have some.
Is that like the dead
corpse
pose?
Yeah,
That's
dead
it.
pose.
Yeah. So they just lie down at the end.
Yeah,
just
you lie on your back, and you just basically focus on your breath and keep the body as still as you can.
Right. Okay.
What would you say for your sessions, and what do you at least what's the most meaningful aspect for you with this style of kind of mixing up yoga with? I presume you mix yoga with meditation. It's almost at the same.
Yeah, I mean, I do some yoga nidra in some of my classes as well, which is sleep yoga. So this is where you lie in Shavasana again for a longer period of time, and I will direct the students. And it's working a bit with the breath, but it's more rotation of consciousness around various points of the body. It has a direct link to the subconscious mind, so you can go quite deep quite quickly. And it's a very relaxing, very rejuvenating practice. It's been said to, 20 minutes is the same as like 6 hours sleep and things like that.
Wow. Yeah,
it's a really lovely practice. So in regards
would
to
you say that's accurate? Like, do you think that like has something like that been tested by science, or is it something that's more like
to work, or is it more like a hearsay? Some people feel like they get that.
Well, yeah. I read one book on yoga nidra, and I trust the source. And I mean, I speak from experience. Whenever I practice nidra myself, I generally feel very refreshed afterwards. And if I practice regularly, I have more vitality of my life.
Okay, sure.
What have you, yeah.
So at very minimum, whether it's proven that it's like 6 hours or anything specific like that, it definitely has had a empirical experience. You've noticed significant energy.
Yes, without
increase.
a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, Philippe said he can do this weird thing where I think he said he barely even needs to eat sometimes.
Well, yeah, there was a time when I was practicing quite heavily and seriously. I wasn't teaching at the time, so I was really focused on my personal practice, and my appetite just went right down, but my energy levels were so high, my sleep was also quite minimal, so it's like the life force that you can create through a yoga practice it's quite amazing, really. Obviously we don't have all the hours in the day realistically to practice that much in order to kind of cultivate that.
That's it. And I always think how long really should, in meditation, how long should a person meditate for in a day? Like, some people say just 10 minutes is enough, other people say an hour's enough, and then it's well, where's the end goal? What is the end goal? Should you be able to close your eyes and be in this whole new world? That's what I hope from it.
Well, I would say take the goal out of it.
Take the goal out
Take
of it?
the goal out of it.
Okay.
It's the whole thing, that expectation or having a goal or something to work towards, which again I think is limiting. If it adds value to your life and if it makes you feel good, then I think that's kind of the difference with the yoga practice and other things, that it isn't necessarily always goal orientated. It's just about being there and experiencing the practice and just giving it your full 100%, but not worried about the outcome.
The outcome. Okay,
It shifts it quite a lot,
Would you find that more? I can imagine just from what you said there that more females are probably interested in meditation and yoga than guys, only because I know, for me, and when they say testosterone and stuff, it's kind of makes you go and it's more achievement oriented. That's what I understand anyway about it. And I think for guys it's almost impossible, or I struggle sometimes to find the meaning in just sitting down and relaxing, because I just think, well, I'm not out getting something, I'm not working hard, wanting to get to a good level so I can provide for the family. Whereas
that might be more on the way that you've lived your life up to this point, more so than men. I would feel the opposite. I feel like there's an element of just doing stuff because you enjoy it, or just because why not, you want to experience a new thing, more than meditating to get something out of it, or doing anything to get something out of it, I think that might just be you, Alex.
Well, maybe. Maybe. I know my family's.
I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I think it comes down to society and what society has expected of us for however many years, you know, and it's not just for men, I think it's for women also. You know, we go to school, you go to college, you get a job, you do all this stuff, and it's like everything's kind of laid out for you. So all this pressure to be a citizen, or you know, it's that just pressure comes with it. Yeah, so these things are kind of built into our system. I'm not sure whether they're working anymore, because people are just, you know, they're, like you say, they're at a point where they can't just sit still and just be okay with nothing or whatever we have in that moment, you know. And I think this is a problem.
Oh yeah,
but for women as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But like, I just think, just might be like a personal bias, but I just think it's, and I've heard places like somewhere in one book that it was very abstract. It was a very abstract book, and it was saying that, trying to understand it, women are apparently closer to the present than guys are. I don't know if you could understand that, or they're like more they're closer to like the divine and the truth than guys are. It's almost like even when people say that like women can, I think, be like more emotional and, you know, like express a lot more, it's because it's more true, whereas guys can be quite in, and they can like they're just stoic and they're not expressive.
I do think that is due to the society pressure though, and what's expected of a man, you know, and maybe what's expected of a woman. You know, if you look at what's, you know, generally, I hate these stereotypes and stuff, but this is just the way it's been, you know, back in the 50s, the man would go out to work, he'd provide for the family, the woman would stay at home and, you know, rear the children or whatever.
Sure.
And to be a mother, you have to be emotional and etc., you know, so it's kind of like, I don't know, things have maybe gone in that way, but I don't necessarily think that's true. It doesn't have to be true either. It's a tricky one again, I think.
Yeah.
I also think it depends on what, because you used a lot of, I think, with sort of rough umbrella terms of like divine and universal truth. They're very much things that you cannot prove. That it comes down to how the individual perceives something like that. Because to say the divine is it's a concept. It's not really like something you can see or touch. It's an idea people have more than like.
That's an experience, I think.
Yeah, or anything that an individual considers to be divine can be divine. Would you not say?
Wow. I don't know, because that what does the definition of divine mean? Doesn't that mean like direct kind of from God, or from like the heavens, or from the thing that's best, like the truth?
For me, personally, divine would be universal consciousness, which some may call God. Yeah.
I'm with that theory. I don't know how much I'm with that theory. I'm kind of with. I've got like each little finger and every pies. Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm like, okay, well, if in our lifetimes they come up with an answer, I'm like, well, yeah, I did have one little finger in that.
I had some money on that.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I kind of thought that might have been a thing. And one of my many fingers are in that pie.
Yeah.
Right?
It kind of cheats if you have your finger in one in every pie. It's like placing a bet on every horse in the Grand National and saying you won the Grand National. Technically, you lost hundreds.
Yeah, no, I
Depends how much you
suppose.
bet though, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. If you only bet a penny on each one, then you know.
Then you still lost money.
Wow. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't go with that thing.
That's
It's a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. Bet on everything.
Yeah.
On everything.
So, in yoga, obviously, there's a lot of, and I've said to Jake earlier, people talk about like this mind-body connection, and I'm quite interested in the breathing, and you said about your breathing techniques. How do you think that could put people in meditative states or get people further in yoga? Why have you kind of combined? There's a lot of questions here, all in one. Let's go with one. Mind-body connection.
Yeah.
What is it about, and how does it deepen a practice?
But I think the mind-body connection is is really important, because a lot of the time we are quite disconnected from our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
If we take the breath as an example, you know, the breath is something which happens involuntarily for us all the time. It keeps us alive. It's just going.
I'm now thinking about it and have to try and focus on how to breathe because I've forgotten now.
Well,
It's one of those things, isn't it?
So this is why the breath is a fantastic tool to create this mind-body connection, because we have the power to control our breath, and then this will have, you know, a direct effect on our brain.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably go. I think I'm going off a little bit topic
No.
here. But yeah, the mind-body connection, even though this is just, you know, material, it's really important for our experience of life, because it kind of grounds us, you know. And if we have this awareness in our body, we can then create awareness through the rest of our lives. It starts with our housing, really, in my opinion. That's kind of what it is.
Okay. Seeing the body is like the housing, your way of interacting with
you know,
things.
our consciousness is housed within this vehicle that we have. So if we're unaware of this, then it could possibly limit our awareness outside of ourselves as well. You know, I think a lot of yoga is an inward journey, and the body is a really useful tool to be able to tap into that inner journey, into the internal parts of ourselves which we don't normally explore. Everything is always out here. You know, our jobs, our family, our lives, our material things, our cars, you know,
Yeah, that's it.
everything's always out there, but we often don't really explore this.
Well, that's because, can I ask, because it's something I think we've had debates about in the past, probably even on this podcast.
We've had debates about everything.
Everything.
There's not one thing I can say that doesn't go past Jake. Everything's like, "Were you sure? Are you sure?"
Well,
And then
you
I'll be
say a lot of things-
I'll be like, "Here we go. All right."
You say a lot of
Believe
things
it.
you've heard somewhere. That's my issue.
That's
Basically,
fair enough.
what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
is-
that's true. It's like I've heard somewhere. Pluck it from my arse.
Yeah, there you go. It's facts. But I was going to ask, so, because we had this discussion a lot about consciousness and whether it's real or just like an ethical tool or whatever.
What do you mean by an ethical tool?
Just something that we call something we don't understand. So it's a tool we use to...
Like almost like God, like
Yeah,
what
like
God
God,
was, and
it-
now
it
that they're
doesn't-
saying that slowly kind of shrinking as more science is growing.
Yeah, because to my understanding from the arguments discussions, not arguments, we've had in the past, you seem to believe in the idea that there is consciousness in the sense of there's something about our minds that is
supersedes the
material.
Yeah, I think I don't understand like the whole chakra thing, and again I'd be quite interested to kind of actually go through what each chakra means. I've briefly looked at it on Google Images, but I mean I can already see that it takes a lot more studying than just that, because I'm like, wow, what does that mean? So, what was the question was?
What is your
You're talking about consciousness.
idea of
Yeah.
consciousness? Do you think there's more of it in the sense of like it's like that there's more to consciousness than we understand?
Oh yeah.
Or do you think maybe it's just our way of understanding
but
something?
obviously, Jake, there's more to consciousness than we understand. That's fact.
But that's
that is fact.
if consciousness is real, you know, consciousness could just be not anything. We could know.
Well, we have to
what
take.
our brains.
I think I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think that consciousness is a very interesting topic, and I think a lot for me anyway. My yoga practice. So we have our minds, our brains, monkey minds, going blah blah blah, this that and the other. I believe, and I think a lot of other yoga practitioners also believe, that there is something else within us, which is universal consciousness.
Like a soul or like
which is, yes, exactly, and this is present in everybody. And I think that a lot of the yoga practice is to get past the mind and tap into that internal consciousness, that divine consciousness, you know? And this is where we get all these lovely experiences and our perception of life changes. In regards to consciousness being real, or I know what you mean, that I've read some quantum physics before, and you know, like our perception of reality could just be like a hologram or something, or you know, we're just creating this image on our brain, but at the same time, you know, we are physical bodies, we can experience, you know, physical things, and but how you know, it's there's so many questions with consciousness that it's just so unanswered.
Well, I guess what I was asking was, I think the majority of especially like neuroscientists would say that we understand how the brain works enough to know that there's not something behind the brain controlling it.
No, yeah, but no.
Do they know that though for sure?
No, because
From what I understand of it.
okay, yeah. So
Yes.
I agree with what you're saying, but you must also be able to see the fact that not everything works on the same level in the same dimension. So so you're kind of saying, yeah, right. Well, we're using these tools to analyze this thing. Do you have a good example of that?
Well, yes, I do, and I'll quote like Russell Brand all the time. So he talks a lot about, and this is the truth. We can only perceive our reality with our 5 or 6 senses, which is our smell, sight, sound, touch, and the brain. I guess our thinking.
Well, even just sorry to interject, but because I know Jake's going to be anal about it, so I'm just backing up that here.
It
Right?
is true.
Like, so even with if we as humans can't perceive things, even the measurements that we use, that kind of that we can learn from, alright, the scientific things out there that can measure things that we can't even perceive, like there are chances that they can't perceive things outside of their own boundaries.
Well, exactly.
Sure, if you asked us 100 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to explain like gamma rays or X-rays because we don't have the tools.
Yeah,
at
we
the
wouldn't
time.
be able to
That's why I'm
even
asking,
perceive it.
Do you think that's the case? Like, because
Definitely.
if you were 100 years ago and you said, I reckon gamma rays are a thing, everyone would have gone, well, you're an idiot, that's not real. But they would have been technically right because you can't disprove it, but you also can't prove it.
Yeah.
So is it more likely just to say, maybe it is, but we'll leave that until we can study it?
Oh, well, yeah, I think...
Or is it better to say...
I think leave it on the table, but that's our personal kind of opinion, because I also think... Sorry,
it's fine.
But there's also then where if people have experience of things that are out of what we've experienced, who are we to tell them that, okay, well, yeah, but you can't say that. You've got to leave it on the table, and you've got to, take a back seat and be undecided about it. Certain people can have maybe experienced things that they can't deny.
Exactly, and you don't know what you don't know yet. So it's like if you're not aware of a piece of information, you won't learn that until you know it, until somebody tells you, or in this case, until you've experienced it for yourself. So.
And I think you're quite hard, I think you're quite hard on people who do have quite strong perspectives on right, okay, there is like a consciousness, Jake can be quite hard. Jake can be like, no. Why are you saying, and you can imagine him doing this, why are you saying that there is a unified consciousness, field of consciousness? You can't just say that. And he'll just say that to people.
I think it's fair to say that you can't just say that without a disclaimer. That's my issue.
What's the disclaimer?
Disclaimer is, but I don't know that for sure. If someone said...
Well, you think you've got to say that?
If someone... Yeah, I think if you're trying to display an argument properly and with truth, you can't just say, I've had this experience, therefore I believe consciousness exists. You have to say, I feel like I've had this experience, therefore I believe personally that exists. You can't say, and to me that is proof, because that's not. That's still a lie. You can say, I reckon, I believe, but even people who I find who believe in this sort of stuff normally try to say it with as much fact as someone who has proof for something like science does.
I think the reason why they probably have such enthusiasm for it is because the experience that they've had is so profound.
Sure.
And unexplainable.
And you can't take that away from them.
And that's exactly why they say it with such certainty.
I think that's a good point. Could you explain how say on the degree of certainty compared to what you've experienced? Are you 100%, or is it quite? Is that, or do you wake up sometimes and go? Do you have doubt?
Of course,
and you think, okay, well maybe all this isn't the case.
Yeah, well, you know what, I'm human at the end of the day, and even though I've got to a point where my practice was really good and I was, feeling the universe or whatever, and I really was in a very bizarre, profound place which I'd never experienced before. Stuff happens, and then that mind starts to click in. So yeah, of course, there are parts of me, and nothing lasts forever. So everything's constantly changing and always in flow. So you're never really going to be necessarily sat on one thing forever in your mind. I think that's maybe healthy to question things. If we don't question as well, then we won't ever learn anything else or grow or develop with an idea. So
definitely.
And it
deserves future study because people do feel like they feel it, and that's as important. Not as important, but it definitely is important.
It's an indication that there might be something more than
meets the eye.
Which is, I just think, is inevitable. But that's almost what we've just said there. It sounds like you really are practicing what you preach and what you do, because you, like you said, it's all about being in the present moment, letting go, allowing, and you're even saying, look, if one day I don't feel this anymore, or like this isn't my truth, if that makes sense, if this isn't true to me anymore, then you're even saying, I'm going to allow that to happen. I'm going to let that, which is good, because I think you can get a lot of preachy instructors and things, because with yoga and meditation there also can become beliefs which are good, but it's when they become too preachy, and if people are telling you to like allow things to flow, and yet they're absolutely 100% with everything. Do you know what I mean?
Maybe I'm toning it down for the podcast. I don't know.
No. But like, do you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you mean. Yeah. I do, and I think maybe people are like that just because they want others to experience the same sorts of things that they've experienced.
Yeah,
sure.
You know, they want them to feel the same joy, and
the same way that if you saw a movie and you really loved it, you're not going to say, oh, but there was this bit I didn't like. You're going to just say, this is amazing, it's the best movie ever, you should go see it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Fair enough, it's a bit of a different...
Is it different?
I don't know. I felt like that yes wasn't even 100%. Oh, you didn't know what you were saying yes to, you just said yes. Is that right? Yes! He says things sometimes that you just go...
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying. It's the same thing. People are just enthusiastic because they want others to experience the same. That's it.
Yeah, that's
exactly. I find you weren't
but
paying attention.
But you made Sayeeda's point. Sayeeda.
Yes. Sayeed for short.
Okay. You took Sayeed's point, right? And this is us as presenters. You took Sayeed's point and you were like, okay, let's make it as convoluted as we possibly can, and let's convert it into a whole new topic. I don't know.
I was making it like relatable to people who haven't had those sort of experiences before.
No, I get it, yeah.
But everyone's watched a movie.
I feel like I can just take the mick out of you, and now I feel like a bully now you've explained that, so
Okay.
You know,
I mean, you definitely
I'm moving
are.
on. Well, thanks for airing that. No. One thing I was interested in, the other day we went camping, we did a camping thing, which was cool. Didn't really think you'd be actually up for that. He was only going around, like, with an axe. He went mad with an axe. He chopped a bloody tree down. What?
What, like a big tree?
A
reasonably big tree in
it got bigger in size.
Okay.
We were trying to make a fire, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm gonna make."
He told me to get some wood. Our mate, he was camping a lot. He was like, "We're gonna make a fire. Jake, you got the axe. Give me some wood." I got a bit of wood. He went, "Mate, give me some proper wood." So I cut a tree down naturally.
I thought we were gonna do that, so I came back with an hard on.
So I came back with a tree. I don't know why you're bringing this up, to be honest, but I came back with a tree.
Yeah, no. Sorry. My main point.
Yeah.
My main point, even though you had your weird psychotic breakdown afterwards.
What breakdown afterwards?
So you know, like, Jake, for the first time ever, has considered meditation, I think. This is for the first time ever. I saw him meditating. He was sat there, like this. I don't think he had his fingers out.
No.
But you were meditating.
Stared off into the sort of sunset, I guess, for like half an hour.
Yeah, which was good. And that's obviously meant to bring you close to nature.
Right, yeah. Close to nature.
No, 10 minutes after it, psychotic breakdown.
Cuts down an entire tree in a national park. Yeah.
So what experience did you get from it? What's your perception of it now after you've experienced?
Well, I don't know what I was supposed to experience from it. I was trying to be very open to it.
What were you doing when you were sat there? Were you just?
I was just thinking about whatever issues came to my mind, and I was trying to have my thoughts be free flowing, so I wasn't trying to like get caught on them. But if there was something I felt like I needed to think about, I would think about it.
Okay.
So I started thinking about, stuff like in my future. Like at the moment, I'm about to go to university fairly soon. I'm getting ready for that. So I was thinking about what courses do I do? Why would I do it? What am I trying to do in my life? And it started to grow from there. And then for some reason that led me to cutting a tree down.
mean, I'll be honest, whenever I teach meditation, I would direct my students to focus on their breath.
Okay.
And if the mind starts to become busy
Mhm.
with thoughts, maybe about the past or the future, I would tell them to just come back to their breath.
Okay.
So it's like, it's okay for these thoughts to be there because they're going to be there. We're not going to, stop them completely because that's just unrealistic.
Sure.
But it's more about practicing to steer yourself away from this chatter of the mind so that we don't move into the chatter of the mind, because this story that we tell ourselves is often problematic. It can be damaging,
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but I often get to a point where my mind's going crazy. I've got 1,000,001 scenarios going in my head, and it causes me anxiety. It's not a very nice headspace to be in. So if we can learn how to quieten that and just come back to the breath, this is for me the meditation practice.
So it's more relaxation.
It is, and it's
for, like,
quietening
the
of the
full body.
mind so that we don't identify with our mind as much, because the mind is generally just in a world of its own, doing whatever it wants to do, thinking
Okay.
about this, that and the other. And don't get me wrong, we obviously need our mind to think about what we need to do for the day, or who we need to look after, food, work, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So so you feel the breathing is a way of more relaxation? Because I actually do a lot of that. I do that basically every night, where I do breathing. Because I know everyone who's watching has done this as well. But I do a lot of. I don't get to sleep. I used to have a little trouble sleeping. I kind of am right with it now because I do this, where I'll do the breathing in the nose for 3 seconds, holding it for 10, breathing out for 4 seconds through my mouth, and that helps a lot. It would be like relaxation. It's not really particularly for me, I find, about stopping thoughts or anything. It's more just
Relaxation.
yeah, relaxation, stopping myself from getting distracted
Well,
by
sure.
external things.
But that's
I
the
guess.
thing, I think really the kind of science behind it is if you apply yourself to focus on your breath and consciously breathe, your mind will automatically become quiet because you're focusing on a task.
On something less stimulating than just normal
and
thoughts.
obviously the breath is relaxing.
Sure, yeah.
But then what like, this is one thing that I've always kind of thought. That, have you heard of the flow state? Like, it's called like something
Flow state.
yeah,
I think I might have.
like the flow state. So it's like if you go on like a long walk, or you say you're at like a climbing,
Okay.
and you do it after a certain amount of time, usually like 20 minutes, something like that, is when you usually tend to hit into this kind of flow state. Or if you're doing something that's right between you're right on the precipice of like chaos and order. So even, let's say, tidying your room.
Yeah, can this thing happen as well with creative work and stuff?
Creative work, obviously, that's the exact same thing. I always think, well, my sort of meditation isn't sitting down and calming down, but I have the mentality that, like, you should try and get your work or your lifestyle, not all the time, obviously it can't happen, that it shouldn't happen that way, but you should try and maximise as many like flow states in your day as possible, and try to be as creative as you possibly can. Even now what we're discussing and chatting, I feel like we're on some kind of level of flow state.
For sure, because I think flow is directly linked to the present moment. When you're really fully present and you're kind of not thinking about anything else. I often get this when I teach as well. I go into the flow state. And I'm just in the moment, and before I know it, half an hour's passed, and it's a really lovely space to be. And as I said before, I think the breath, it brings you back to that present moment because you're focusing on what is happening right here, right now with the body, So there's that direct link.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a quicker way, I suppose, to tap into that feeling. And another point, if I could add, a lot of like kind of psychological research on happiness suggests that when we're achieving our goals or in the direction, when we perceive ourselves to be achieving our goals, that's when we're happiest. That's when dopamine gets released, and when people fall short of achieving their goals, one benefit I could see of meditation would be you're much easier at letting go of your goals. So it's almost like you strive and strive and strive to achieve your goals. That's good. It's giving you happiness. But if you fall short of them, perhaps it's much easier to allow yourself to let go of those goals and almost convert into a more realistic goal. A lot of people can easily fall into depression if they're not hitting their goals. I know I struggle if I don't do something like on a week I can get really down about it. And one of my rules is kind of try to let it go. The second it doesn't happen, let it go.
Yeah.
The second you know you can't achieve something and it's not realistic, let it go, because that's just going to cause you more suffering ultimately.
Totally. Yeah.
So just on a personal, I find that what you just that everything you said there to be true, apart from the very last thing you just said, which is that if you don't find it achievable, you let it go, because you are the most stubborn person when it comes to trying to achieve something, and especially since like through climbing being the main one. If you can't do a particular wall, a particular climb while we're climbing, you will be there for hours the rest of the time until someone, normally me, tells you we need to do something else because you're just going to get angry trying to do the hardest climb, like a professional like competition climb, immediately once you enter the building when you've just been doing it for 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I get you. But right, when that happens, you try it for a little bit.
Try it for 6 hours.
You say about getting angry. Never once have I gotten angry
You don't get angry.
doing a climb.
You get
I'm
frustrated.
enjoying it. Yeah, but it's almost positive frustration. Do you know what I mean? When you're kind of like, it's not for. Maybe they're juxtaposing emotions. Right. Let's rephrase what I just said. It was bull. Okay. It's like a positive passion that can come across maybe as determined and unhealthy, but I love it. Okay. And the second I don't enjoy it, I drop it.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, key in a sense. But I'm not saying if you don't enjoy something, don't go to work. I'm not saying that either.
I mean, I am
there's a fine line, isn't there?
Well, I am absolutely saying that. If you don't enjoy work, quit instantly.
I think I'd second it, to be honest. Find something else. Something else will open up, you know? It's like...
Be homeless for a bit.
But if
It's
you've
fine.
got kids and a family and...
You know.
You could do it from a practical standpoint.
Don't listen to us.
I thought you were going to say don't listen to me. Don't listen to him. Get on the streets, do whatever you can. Right.
Well, there's the career advice done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yoga, you were saying about different kind of positions and stuff. Today, why would you use different positions for different things? What? For example, like a downward dog position, I just use that in my personal training at the end to kind of stretch, and it's kind of more fun, more interesting way. It calms people down after a session. I sort of try and make it fairly quiet and chill. It's like, you know, the cool down, obviously.
Yeah.
But I see it more as stretching, whereas do you go into different mindsets? Do you have like anchors to different emotions, to different postures?
Well, you know, the actual theory behind all of the yoga postures, each one has specific values and benefits, or a purpose. So some will work directly on specific organs or areas of the body, you know, shoulders, the back of the legs, you know, just for like opening up the areas of the body. And then there are other types of postures which will have a more direct link to like the nervous system. For example, forward folds activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest mode. And they can also, if you look at it from a more energy body type standpoint, they take you to a more introverted place. So they're an inward posture, you know, because if you think of the actual, what it looks like to do a seated forward fold, your head is down, you're coming inward. Yeah, and whereas if you're doing a back bend, you're opening the heart, you're opening
proud,
yourself
like
up.
the warrior kind of pose. It's more.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
I don't understand. I'm telling
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
So you're saying that if you're having a more sort of compact and restrained position, you'll be more introverted personality-wise?
No, just for the experience. So, you know, a yoga practice, in essence, is an inward practice, but it's not at the same time. You can just contradict yourself with yoga consistently.
Yeah.
So there's always one thing and there's something to counteract it. What I just meant is that with, for example, forward folds, if I were to put you in a forward fold right now, you would notice a difference than if you were open like this and had your arms out.
So okay.
Because you would instantly be closed off. You'd be looking down. You wouldn't be looking to the outside world. You wouldn't be looking at anyone else. So it's more inward, you know. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. So there's less sort of stimuli.
Yeah, the experience
Because
takes you inwards.
No. It's not about. I don't think it's about less stimuli. I think I understand what you're saying. I'm gonna give this a go. I think what we're saying is that And if you stand up proud, body language affects your mental state, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So if you're in a proud state, then automatically you have subconscious neural networks, which as soon as you do that, you feel more proud, you feel more confident.
Okay.
They're like little anchors. They use it in hypnosis as well a lot of the time. If you do that, sometimes that can send you to sleep. I actually have my own thing where if I do that, I kind of drift. I try to yawn and I sort of get into a more sleepy state.
Well, that's just all.
It's posture.
Okay, sure.
But also, if you see an unconfident kid or like a nervous kid, he's hunched over.
Yeah.
He's kind of sort of looking down. He's less spacious, whereas a confident guy, they're sprawled out. They're like,
exactly.
you know.
And you know this type of stuff which I've just spoken about in relation to the forward folds and maybe the back bend and the differences between those, they can also directly relate to the chakra system.
Yeah.
So we
That's
have
interesting.
we have these chakras which are like energy centers within the body at various points along the central channel, and they correlate to our personality and various aspects about ourselves. So I'll use the back bends as an example. The back bends are heart openers. Our heart chakra is centered here.
What do you mean by back bends?
So a back bend would be standing up and reaching up and actually bending backwards, or if you see in the upward bow position with the hand like a crab, people
You were doing that
people
earlier,
would
yeah.
describe it as a crab. Yeah, exactly. So this would be a back bend or a heart opener because
Okay.
we're opening this area of the body, so it can be really good for the chakra in this
Okay.
area. Yeah, there's various different things like this.
Can I ask you to explain chakra to me and Alex?
Yeah.
I'll do
This
my
is
best.
this is a
Like
tricky one.
layman's terms.
So yeah, it's a basically. I'll just give you a bit of information that there are various layers to our human experience.
Okay.
So we have, and they're like energetic layers really. So we have the growth body, the physical body. These are called koshas, I think, if I'm correct. So we have the physical body, we have the energetic body, and various others. My knowledge isn't the best on this, but the chakra system. So all the way along the spine, they start at the base of the spine and they go up to the top of the head, and they are just basically energy centers. So this is part of the energetic body within the psyche. So as we were saying earlier about things which we can't necessarily measure within our experience because we can't see them, or we can't see them, or we can't taste them, etc. This energetic body is one of those things which isn't necessarily always within our perception of awareness.
Whew.
Okay.
That's a. Oh, can I just quickly?
Yeah.
Someone said,
that's
hello, said on an energetic level, which is subtle. So I'm not too sure what.
I think this might be my best friend. You know.
Oh, okay, awesome. So do you understand what she's?
It's a subtle body thing.
Okay.
So, you know, if we aren't aware of it most of the time.
What chakras?
Chakras,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
no, of course, we're not really. I wouldn't imagine unless you're Buddha.
Yeah,
Very good, straight away. I don't know, and
Go on
this is why we do the practice as well, is to tap into these subtle states of the body so that we can create this awareness, learn more about ourselves, not just on the physical element. It is hi. Yeah, so you know we can get this awareness on our inner levels, so it's not just what we see out here. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to order conversation because I think I'm confused.
Well, let's keep with it.
So
this is what he does on a climbing wall. He'll see. This is what I'll do on a climbing wall. I'll stick and try and solve the problem.
and not do it,
And
I'll
Jake
go
will,
to a different
and Jake will
climbing
be
wall.
like,
Yeah, I'll go to a
Okay.
different climbing wall and then learn something new if I'm not doing it right. Either way, it's all about climbing, Alex. We can talk about climbing another time.
Oh.
But what basically you were saying
All connected.
that with energy, it's something that you can't measure. It's something beyond our ability to measure it.
Well, you could measure it by your experience.
Okay.
And your feeling of the energy. I was just using a example to talk about how we linked earlier when we were talking about the five senses and when we were talking about consciousness and what we can and can't necessarily measure because of our limitations of the measuring devices, if you know what I mean.
Which makes sense for consciousness because it's close to an abstract thought. It's something that we something we believe to be there, but we can't necessarily prove.
That's the same as the chakra system, though, isn't it? Really?
Okay. The chakra system's quite detailed to my understanding of it.
Sure.
So how can we not really be able to measure it properly, that have quite detailed analysis of it.
Well, I think that people have been practicing yoga for thousands of years, and I think that continually people experience and feel these systems, these chakra systems, through the energy work, through the yoga practice, and they all have their experience to talk about, which means that we have this understanding of it.
But it's not, Jake. It's not like, say, like it's not like a scientific paper where everything is articulated to the smallest degree. It's more. They're more representations of collectives experiences. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's experience more than anything else. And I think that, you know, if you've got however many thousands of people saying the same thing and experiencing the same thing, then how can you really deny that?
Well, you can deny it in the same way that you can deny religions in the past, because there's a level of
Whoa, where we going?
like we can know that there's this sort of emperor's new clothes egg style of like exclusion. People, a lot of people say they feel this stuff because they're afraid that they are in some way broken because they don't feel it. There's a lot of people who like to think of themselves as spiritual people but aren't actually spiritual people. And there's a lot of people, I think, who only have these experiences because people have told them before about their experiences. So maybe one person's had a spiritual experience. They
like
tell
a genuine
people,
spiritual
yeah,
experience.
and everyone else has a placebo effect. So I think to say that just because a lot of people have an experience doesn't mean necessarily it's true. There's a lot, like a huge amount of meta-analysis in the past that are completely thrown to the wayside because of the amount of people in it. A larger group of people can skew results because they affect each other in the study normally. So
Yeah, but this is the thing.
Yeah.
I think in regards to a yoga practice, it's something which is you do yourself. Even though you're in a room with people, you have these experiences on your own. So if what one person says to somebody else, it might correlate at some point in their life, but I don't think it's on the same scale as what you were just talking about there. Well, I don't understand, I can't think of why somebody would want to lie about something like that, because it's just an experience within oneself. It's not necessarily, well, it's not to kind of, I don't know, it's hard to...
It's not the say if you wanted to make some money, you'd probably go into like banking or something like that. Like,
But there's a lot of people who sell,
I get what you're saying, and I'm not saying I disagree. I definitely do think as well that there are, like, of course, in like every industry, there's like pseudos and like they pretend that they kind of know, or they imagine that they've had all these experiences sometimes for profit. Some people could say that somebody like David Icke could be an example of that, talking about like the reptilian overlords and things like that. Like, who knows? But then again, he might genuinely believe it, and he might have had some experiences, spiritual experiences. But you can never quite tell whether somebody's telling the truth or not. However, there does seem to be, and I really like this idea of a deeper truth than fact. And you might, I know you're gonna, I know you're gonna have issue. Yeah. Okay, so Jake, by that I understand what you're saying. Yes, definition is wrong. But what I'm saying is this, right? You read a well-crafted story, okay? A really well-crafted story.
Sure.
That's got like the archetypal hero. This is what Jordan Peterson goes on about all the time. I think is amazing. Like the archetypal hero. If something, you read that book, you get drawn into it, it resonates with you, and even though it isn't true, you cried at Tony Stark dying. That's not true. That's like obviously it's not true, but we know that the emotions that were there, and we know that like the story that it was conveyed, and that was a hero giving up his life, he was sacrificing, and we know that across all of humanity is true. Like, we know that that's good and that's the thing you should do. So I'm saying there are certain things like chakras that, again, I'm not necessarily saying that like I understand it or that I believe in it, but what I am saying is that I understand that there are some things that can be taken and put as a picture, as an image, that aren't necessarily like factually true, but they're the best representations we have to explain experiences that people have had across thousands of generations.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
That's like, but yeah, it's not scientifically true.
Yeah.
I guess, if you know what I mean.
Well, I think
I
the
don't know,
difference,
like-
the difference here is the difference between the words truth and fact. Fact is something that cannot be denied with. It is
But how can you deny someone's experience?
because
Because it's someone's experience.
well, you can't deny it, but you
No,
also
well, there
can't
you go.
prove it. That thing, it's a truth. It's true to them, and you can't take it away from them. To them, that is definitely true, and they definitely experienced it, no matter what it was. But I think it would be a bit of a jump to say that is something else that we can't explain before we look at something that could be explained. If that makes sense. It's like if someone's having, is meditating and feels like they've connected with some other sort of form of consciousness or higher understanding, it might just be that they were either looking for that because they want to feel that, they want to fill this sort of void that everyone used to fill with stuff like religion and...
But let me tell you something. So when I first started practicing yoga, it was a very funny story really, but anyway, I had no idea what I was going to experience. I had no idea what I was going to tap into, and tapping into that changed the course of my life. It was the most transformative experience I've ever had. So it's like I was never even looking for something. I was just doing this thing. Really, I joined the gym for my mental health more than anything else. I learned a few postures and I just started practicing. I went to one class and I had this moment where I just clicked into something and I was just like, okay, what's happened? And it's like, it was just so profound.
So I think we can all agree that like experience in itself is real.
100% real.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That experience with itself.
We'll
And you're
get
going to
that.
call it that,
No,
are you?
well, I see where you're trying to go with this, and I think you're trying to like decompose the idea of chakras, whereas the idea of you're comparing it to like, let's try. Okay, so you're comparing it to like the mechanical functions of a camera, right? Is so the difference is it doesn't work on the same plane because and I'll try and be as intricate as I can with what I'm saying.
Okay.
What I mean by that is the idea is a lot more abstract. It's an abstract idea,
Yeah.
whereas the mechanical components of a camera, it's tangible. This is abstract, but abstract things you can't compare with the practical.
Well, Halo's just said something great. How do you prove someone is in love? So if you can't, does that mean love doesn't exist because we can't prove it scientifically?
Yes.
Hang on, what?
Love does not exist. It is like happiness plus time. We can understand what love is on a chemical level.
Okay, well, what? Okay, another question then, because we can trap some corners, like trap each other here with this conversational mix up. Happiness doesn't exist then.
Happiness doesn't exist.
Well, you've just said happiness plus time.
Well, okay. Then you break it down to the next category.
Okay, well,
So
that's what
happiness then is.
Okay, well that's the same with love. So you can't say love doesn't exist. Love does exist on that.
No,
Because,
love
okay,
is a truth.
You just said
Love is something that
happiness.
someone personally
But you-
feels.
What?
So love is something someone personally feels.
Yeah.
So when you're in love, you know you're in love because you're the one experiencing.
But you
it.
still
Like happiness,
chemical reactions like
sure.
happiness, dopamine. But you just used the word happiness, and you did use it as if you've already accepted that to be a thing that exists, happiness. Although that is abstract, because you can say, right, what type of happiness are we talking about? Are we talking about expedience? It like instant pleasure, or are we talking about happiness in terms of long-term contentment? It's more of an abstract, vague idea.
Here's the reason. Here's my explanation to it, and I'll explain it as clear as possible. Basically, is the idea with happiness is you can understand happiness chemically. You can go into someone's brain. You can see them releasing dopamine, and you can go, that's it, and circle it with a marker. Even if you go out, you can go happiness. You can circle with a marker and then an equation.
Okay.
But that's because we can measure it based on our science as we are at present and our knowledge and our senses in this current dimension. That's why. But who's to say that we don't know what's beyond that? We don't know what's beyond that because we don't have the limitations to be able to measure it or even experience it all of the time because it's beyond our...
Which is why I think it's fine to say that it may exist. I do believe that there will be probably some sort of idea of consciousness that we don't understand. I just don't think that it's fair to say that we know it currently, to any degree.
We know what? Sorry.
Consciousness or anything
Right.
like that, to any degree, any of these sort of abstract ideas we're
Do you
discussing.
practice yoga?
I've
What do you think?
no, I don't practice yoga, but I have seen studies on yoga, and I have examined it from
That's
afar.
it, but you've got to
Fair
experience
enough.
it. You've got to do it. You've got to practice in order to know this stuff. In order to know, you've got to practice.
I think it'd be very unlikely that everything else in existence that we understand, literally everything else, we can experience it without experiencing it personally. We can see byproducts of it. I think it would be a very big change for our understanding of physics to say that there's suddenly something that we don't understand. I mean, it's not definitely not true. I just think it means that there's got to be an element of skepticism about it when you talk about it. There's got to be an element
Of
of.
course, sure.
Yeah.
I think maybe we
we've
need to step it
already-
up a bit more.
We have
in
already
society.
established that, but we've already established that you can't, confirm or deny, and I think we shouldn't get caught up on that because ultimately nobody knows. Like ultimately, you've admitted you're giving it your best shot. This is your truth at the time. You've got your truth at the time. I've got my truth at the time.
Mhm.
We're all just
Truth in
Yeah,
it.
we're all just truthing it out.
Yeah,
We're we're the next Buddhas.
yeah.
We're all truthing it out. This is
Yeah.
great. No, but yes, I get what you're saying. But then, you could say chakras just it does have scientific evidence to support it.
Does it?
This is where you're going to be like, what? And you might even be like, what? I'm going to tell you how.
Okay.
Sort of. With your knowledge, I'm going to put it in. Yeah.
Go for
Right.
it. Camera's on you.
Right. And we've had. Just going to interject. Sorry. Before we've got people's attention now. That's it. So, scientific community has for a long time accepted qualitative evidence, personal experience.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. Did you hear about the biggest studies in brains that are trained in meditation?
Mm.
That's great. So you've got isn't it like alpha waves, beta
And
waves,
it's
different?
grey matter, so and the neurons that fire together, wire together, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The brain activity actually improves, and
I put it similar to learning a second language as a child. That's the study
What?
that I've seen. That learning meditation at any age is similar to opening up the same neural pathways you would have from studying a second language. They're definitely huge positives, but the reason we know that is because we can see the
that's-
neural waves.
Yeah, but
but that's the thing though. It's like if we only use however much percentage of our brain, this meditation enhances that percentage. So who's to say that if we tap into that percentage of our brain and use more of it, then we can see and experience other things that are on higher planes of consciousness, so to speak.
Hang on.
Yeah, keep going.
There is enough scientific evidence for yoga theory to make it into formalised therapy in NHS. I don't think any of us either are disagreeing with the health benefits that it can,
Yes,
can give.
definitely.
I think what the
mental and physical health could definitely be hugely improved by it.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the next comment by Sarah Pandy. Do you know who that might be? I don't know. Counterfeit money only exists because of real money.
That is true. Thank you for that.
I think you clicked
care
on the
to,
wrong podcast, my friend.
elaborate?
I know. Elaborate if you want to really muck around. Mate.
Yeah.
We appreciate the fact that you're commenting.
Yeah.
Awesome. We want some more info.
Mm.
Yeah. So, where were we even at?
You were going to say that something.
Oh, about can I
Yeah,
try
go
and
for
say
it,
like
go for it.
about
Go
health?
for it.
Health.
Science
Okay.
about chakras.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay. So I know nothing about chakras.
Okay. But now you're going to state facts
I,
about it.
I at least think I understand or can imagine that it probably comes from the like we said earlier, it's more of an abstract idea. So like you said about the opening up the you said like the heart chakra, but that's the chest
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So do you know from a scientific standpoint what that does? So if you're doing this posture, it's probably it's gonna open up your lungs, open up your airways, which means that what's gonna happen is you're gonna probably take in more oxygen, or at least I'm not, it's not like I'm a personal trainer and know I have to do like an anatomy course or anything.
So the chakras are also a little bit more subtle, so they work a bit more with personality as well. So, for example, the throat chakra is linked to communication.
Okay.
So someone who, I don't know, may have not an underactive throat chakra might be find it difficult to express how they feel and talk about who they want to be or communicate how they feel to people and things like that. So by doing things to open the chakra can therefore make the person feel more at ease with communicating how they want to be in the world and who they want to talk to and stuff like that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. And I can imagine that the it's the postures that you do probably link into positive, like, psychological triggers for the mind to get you in the right particular state or to help out with certain things. So say with like the throat, I don't know, do you have like an example that could help out? So with like the throat chakra.
I don't know for sure, but I guess just general neck exercises, just opening up, getting the energy moving in this area. Anything like this, circles, etc.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
And then that goes back to there's scientific evidence. There's going to be scientific evidence to support that what you've just done is going to be helpful for what?
I'm curious what you mean by energy. I just want a collocation.
Okay.
So everything is energy, really.
Everything has energy, but nothing is matter isn't.
Well, of course matter is, because matter is particles that are moving together and vibrating, which create energy. So everything is energy.
Well, they create energy. I think there's a difference, at least scientifically speaking. I think.
But if there's atoms in this table that are moving together in order for it to be solid,
yeah.
but they're still moving, they're still vibrating.
They are moving, but I think there's a difference between something existing and something. Energy is a byproduct of something. So energy is what happens.
Can't be created, normally destroyed. So
that's good.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just, so when you say it's byproduct, okay.
So matter isn't energy. Matter has energy and then exerts energy. So it's not that it is energy in itself.
I don't know. Maybe my philosophy, because I would say that I would just say that it is energy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, according to at least what I was taught and what I understand of it, it's not energy. It's not considered to be energy in the sense of like energy is like the transference of potential change, basically.
Well, there you go. Then you've just
but
answered your own
something
question,
isn't change.
So again.
So when you're saying like you're opening up your throat center, is that basically saying you're opening up your potential to speak louder or to speak more confidently?
Could be, yeah, exactly. That could be one of the things that could result from that, yes.
But don't cut.
Or it could be the other way. You could be overly loud.
If I'm
let me talk about myself, and I'm going to say this, that, and the other. So maybe you need to tone it down a little bit in that area.
Oh, so it's like discipline. It's like just working it out.
Yeah, it's like balancing that area.
That does make sense.
You could go one way or the other.
Okay.
Yeah, different personalities, different people are going to be more one than the other in these different aspects, aren't they? So I guess it's about finding balance within the chakra system, so that we're just balanced.
Okay, I think I got it. I think I understand this now.
Yeah.
So my the misunderstanding I think I'm having is I think chakra has a lot to offer, but I think the terms are very they seem very sort of pseudoscience-y. Well, I think if you relate them into science terms, I would understand that a lot better.
Okay, yeah.
So if you talked about like the same way that we talked about like breathing can make you more relaxed, if you talked about it in the sense of like, well, doing throat exercises can have you a better understanding to do like different voices or to be able to use your voice in a better way, that makes sense. And if you talked about like your chest center, I don't know, but heart center, as in like sort of be able to move your lungs and that, you would learn to use those muscles in a more controlled and useful way. That makes sense.
So yeah.
But this is the thing, it's not always about the physical body though, and this is the thing.
Okay, that's where I think I understand.
Yeah, and the chakra system, while they have a relationship to the physical body, they're also on the subtle body, which is to do with our personality and things like that.
What's the subtle body like? That's something that's Hello's mentioned.
trauma gets stored in the physical body. Correct. This is also proven by science. So someone can store their traumatized emotions in the throat chakra, for example. So working with that area can help resolve emotions. 100%. Yeah. And
Okay.
so,
Okay. So, Jake, listen.
I'm sorry.
Jake, honestly, he does this. He does this.
I didn't even know what he said.
I'm just
Right.
reading it.
Right.
Basically.
So, can you explain? So, trauma gets stored
Yeah.
in the physical body.
Yes.
So, what do we mean?
So, okay, somebody goes through a traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
That emotion was so intense that it can get stored within the body.
Like as in
Physically
physically,
stored
as in scientifically
Yeah,
verifiable.
scientifically. Well, I don't know whether it's scientifically,
Okay,
but
yeah.
it can get stored in the body, and generally, this might be where disease comes from. People are stressed, overworked. They can get problems with their physical body because they haven't released these emotions. If somebody has a trauma and they aren't able to talk about it or resolve these issues within themselves, then all of that emotion, that energy, with this attached to that emotion, is going to get stored within themselves. So if you aren't moving through that, this can cause problems within the physical body. So working with these chakras and balancing the chakras can move this energy so that you can balance it and live a much more happier and healthy life.
So, yeah, I interpret that also similarly to how I crossed that over with psychology, and with of course traumas and stuff. It's like if you don't accept the traumas, or one of the first things in CBT therapy is that you have to first kind of accept the traumas that you've kind of been given. You have to face them, because a lot of the time these can be held up. These can be built up in what Carl Jung calls the shadow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is it's almost like the dark self that you are hiding, or it's things that are built up, parts of you that you're trying to repress. So I can definitely see how facing things like that can alleviate trauma. Trauma also, although obviously mind kind of based in the mind, also can have physical implications. Stress can obviously cause physical strain.
For instance, PTSD can cause anorexia through not wanting to eat constantly.
Well, you
have the immediate reaction to wanting to throw up.
But also you've got things like if you're overly aggressive about a certain thing, or there's a certain type of person, just based on your past and your history, there's a certain type of person that you meet, it can possibly cause you to tense up, and maybe if you're around that person at plenty of times, you've got places in the body which are a lot tighter. Even say an overbearing mother who only wants you to say the right thing at the exact right time could genuinely, I can imagine, this is just I can imagine, but I can imagine there could well be scientific evidence to suggest that when you're around that person, your throat could tighten and you could be a lot more restricted, even subconsciously, and that's a physical. That's
it's
how I'm interpreting it, but it could be like a physical trauma of the body that gets represented through. I don't know what I'm saying now. But
I see what you mean. It's a side effect of a mental issue. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but that's the only way I can interpret it. Is when you have some form of mental change, mental difference, that can have a positive change of difference because your brain's controlling the rest of your body. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Is that what you guys were saying? Or am I completely off?
Well, no. Again, it's similar. I think it's similar, but it's essentially you're talking on one level, you're talking on another level, and it's literally like this, and we're just going to keep bashing our heads together all the time.
Yeah.
Because both are true. Both are true, and I don't think both discount the other. Jake, just I don't want to waste your time any further. So if you want to chat about this offline, I'm happy to do the honours here, because we're getting caught up.
I'll sit here and press the buttons. It's fine.
We'll just get on to a new subject. Come on.
Yeah, we've been on chakras for quite a while, haven't we?
Yeah. But in all fairness, that was bloody good, because you have had loads of issues with that, and I'm sure you still do now. But I feel a bit more well informed.
I feel like I understand it more.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, good.
And there's parts of it I misunderstood and immediately disregarded as not true because of the sort of unbelievable terms that were used to my understanding.
And I definitely agree. Agree on that standpoint that the whole like chakra idea isn't for everybody, and I definitely think that other people need more kind of tangible, scientific, technical, terms and stuff and evidence to explain. But it's the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Go for it. Just go.
Well, I'm just, it's about the practice.
Okay, cool.
If you practice, you will know and you will understand. You know, there's a famous quote that says, yoga is 99% practice and 1% theory, and that's true. You have to experience it in order to figure this stuff out. And it has to be within yourself.
Definitely.
Otherwise, you'll never know, and otherwise you will always just be like, wow, what have I got to prove that? It's like
that's it. And sometimes, and there's like great. I think we're all kind of concluding. There's the idea that there's like a priori knowledge and a posteriori knowledge. Simply put, we all get knowledge through different means. Sometimes something will happen and we'll be informed of something we didn't even know. But then other times, we so that's like when experience comes first. Other times, like say, okay, maybe I'm not very good at this, but if we say something like gravity, for example, it's kind of like it's like a theory. We don't think about it beforehand, but it's a theory leads us to understand that there's a thing called space-time, for example.
Sure.
If that makes sense. So sometimes the theories, the theory comes first and we believe it to be true. Other times we experience something and then we believe that to be true. Maybe I'm talking silly, but I feel like it's connected. I felt like I had to say it. So I've said that.
Going off of that and change to a slightly different subject.
Subject.
I think anyone who wants to hear more about the idea of experiences shaping the world, I think they should definitely read Neil Gaiman's American Gods, if anyone's ever read that. It's basically a similar thing. Everything that's believed by someone immediately becomes true. It's set in a world in which... So people...
Netflix series.
It's an Amazon series, but I think it's very different to the book, to my understanding. I've only just started reading the book. But it talks about, planes exist because Isaac Newton convinced people that it was possible for it to exist, not because it was possible for it to exist. And it kind of plays off of that idea. So gods exist because people believed in them. That's a big part of it. But then things become sacred through thought. So stuff like meditation becomes a god. There's like the god of meditation who is basically the embodiment of people's beliefs of it, and that's what shapes it. I think it's interesting, at least to
it's just an
interesting thing to look into if they're interested in that.
Thank you very much for that.
On that, I'm gonna give myself a cookie.
Have you had a cookie?
I haven't. No, I don't really want to eat because it would just be a mess, and I'll get them on the way out.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Are you a fan of cookies or?
Who doesn't like a cookie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We've had someone called Summer Paddy. True knowledge of self comes through your own personal experience. Something impossible to verify by someone else other than yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Summer Paddy. I think that's something that we can all agree on now.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
We've hit a conclusion. We're all happy
You're
with it.
uniting us.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much. Awesome stuff. I'm just thinking, it's 9:10. Is there? Well, I'm thinking we could probably draw this to a close. If that's all right with you. Is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion? And is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion? And whatever, we'll just cool little things or cool little questions or anything. Just like.
Not really. Just if this conversation has sparked some interest, come and practice yoga.
Awesome.
Give it a try.
Yeah, awesome. And where do you?
So I run 3 classes a week of my own. One on a Monday night at World Community Centre, 7 p.m. One at Hans Price. That's at 6:30 on a Wednesday, and then an Ashtanga class on Thursdays at 6:15 in Bleeden.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And Jake, do you have any questions or anything? Nice and light-hearted.
Finish cookie first.
That's what I just want to
I would say that I think
Fair enough.
everyone should go out and try both meditation, and I think both meditation and yoga by themselves before going to a class. I feel like that's the way to do it from my understanding.
I would totally disagree.
Oh really?
Yeah, of course, because you need someone to tell you how to do it, right?
But like, what if you
Because
find?
that's
What
the
if you
thing.
find your own way?
Oh no!
Like,
I think we're starting something else here. No, because that's the thing. It's like the teacher has experience and
Yeah.
knows how to get to a certain state. You know, we just spoke about your
Yeah,
thing with
okay.
the campsite where you went and chopped the tree down after
Yeah.
meditation. And you know, as I explained to you, really it's about bringing it back to the breath and not focusing on the fluctuations of the mind.
it makes sense. If you wanted to learn maths, you wouldn't sit down and just start counting things. You'd go to a maths class.
Yeah, exactly.
All you do is embellish your own imperfections.
Yeah, you want to learn a language. You're not just going to sit there and be like, right, okay, I'm just going to learn Hindi now.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
You
think
can
about
very
it.
easily get
You go to an
off
expert,
track.
otherwise you learn the wrong thing.
You need to be guided through the process. you
Okay,
know.
so if you want to learn meditation or yoga, go to a class.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's
There you go.
what I'll answer that then.
So,
Alex, anything you want to add?
I don't know. I want to say, so quick question just from Summer Paddy. How long did it take to become a teacher? Do you think learning is a continuous process even for a teacher?
Of course, it's a continuous process. It was funny when you guys put expert on the thing, and I'm like, well, I've just scratched the surface, you know.
I think a lot of people feel like that in so many industries.
It's
as well,
such a vast subject is yoga. For me, this will be a lifelong practice, a lifelong learning, and I feel really blessed that I get this opportunity. How long did it take me to become a teacher? My training was spread over 8 months with Bristol City Yoga. So yeah, it was like modules, 4-day modules sort of thing. You can do them pretty quickly. I wanted to spread it out so I could read all the books and
awesome.
have practice teaching and things like that. Yeah. So.
Was that so? Where, because obviously you can get too disconnected things. You can kind of have like the spiritual yoga, or you can do more like the westernized, like practical yoga. So what course did you go in for, and how have you learnt your kind of the more spiritual aspects of your training?
So my course gave a broad understanding of the whole of the practice of yoga. We touched on yoga philosophy. Obviously it was very asana based, so we were learning about the body and anatomy and physiology and the chakra system and all this kind of stuff. The spirituality side of it comes with the practice.
Okay, sure.
My life has become spiritual since I've started practicing yoga.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for coming on. I'm
Thank
glad.
you for having me.
Thank you,
It's
thank
been really
you.
fun.
I'm good. I know we've had some
harsh
head to head,
debates,
but I'll tell you what.
we're all better off for it.
I think so. I really appreciate the fact that you still stuck
You
with it.
stuck with us.
And
Dealing with my bullshit.
and Jake, because I know that when we had Philippe on, I know you had like so many questions, and you were kind of like confused, and you weren't satisfied with a lot of the things he said, and you said you wanted to come on the show.
Not satisfied,
really-
like
well-
no.
You said you said you wanted to come on the show and kind of like bash heads a little bit, just try and get to understand, not bash
heads, but I wanted to
try and-
challenge some ideas.
If
and
you want to
challenge some ideas.
understand, practice.
I know to.
That's it.
There you go. Awesome. So thank you very
so much
much.
for coming
Thank you
on.
so much.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no, thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
Um,
Well, should we say goodbye?
Let's say goodbye. So thanks for watching.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.